I wasn't supposed to be awake. I'd been lying there for over an hour. Eyes shut, breathing slow, trying to pretend everything was fine. That's how it had been lately, pretending. Pretending I didn't notice the way she flinched when I touched her. Pretending her girls' nights weren't turning into weekends. Pretending the silence between us was peaceful and not loaded like a gun with the safety off. It was 2:41 a.m. when she whispered it. She thought I was asleep, and maybe I was supposed to be, but I wasn't. I turned to face the wall so she couldn't see the tear stains on my pillow. She got out of bed quietly, tiptoed out of the room like I was some fragile statue that might shatter if I stirred. I heard her pad across the hallway floor, then the click of her phone being unlocked. Then, her voice. I hate this. I hate waking up next to him. My chest tightened. No, he's not asleep. Not really. He just lies there. All the time. Like a houseplant. There was a pause. I imagined the person on the other end laughing. I imagined them asking what I looked like asleep. I imagined them calling me names I'd never hear. I can't even stand being in the same room with him anymore. It's like suffocating. That's the word that broke me. Suffocating. You know how it feels to realize that the one person you've bent your entire existence around can't even bear to inhale near you? My fingers curled into the bedsheet. I kept my back to the door. I didn't move. Not even when I heard her laugh. That fake, breathy laugh she used to give me when we were still something. Then came the final blow. I think I'd rather he just left. And that's exactly what I did. I waited until I heard the water running in the bathroom. Then I got out of bed, packed a bag silently in the dark, left my wedding ring on the windowsill, and walked out without a sound. She didn't hear the door close. She didn't know she'd said it loud enough for me to hear. But she'd find out. And when she did, her reaction wasn't confusion or guilt or even sadness. It was panic. Because I didn't just walk away from our bed. I walked away from the life she thought I was too weak to ever leave. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I drove around the city with the heater on, just circling aimlessly with my bag in the back seat and the ghost of her words echoing louder than my engine. I think I'd rather he just left. You'd be amazed how cold a car feels when the only thing keeping you warm is heartbreak. Around 6 a.m., I parked in an empty grocery lot and sat there, still gripping the wheel like I was bracing for impact. I didn't cry. Not yet. But my hands were shaking. By 7:12, she texted, "Where are you?" Then at 7:16, "Did you go to work early?" And then at 7:23, "Curtis, what the hell?" I didn't respond. I turned off my phone and watched the screen fade to black. That felt like a metaphor, honestly. Like everything I'd been holding together with tape and blind hope had finally powered down. I couldn't go back. Not after hearing that. Not after realizing I had become background noise in a life I helped build. A few hours later, I checked into a cheap roadside inn with a broken vending machine and a sour smell I couldn't place. The woman at the front desk asked if I was okay. I lied and said I just needed a quiet place to write. She smiled like she believed me, which somehow hurt more. It made me realize how many strangers would treat me kinder than my own wife. Back home, though, things were unraveling quickly. When I finally turned my phone back on that evening, I had 12 missed calls, 6 texts, 1 voicemail. She never leaves voicemails. So I listened. Her voice was shaky, not angry, not confused, panicked. "I just woke up and your stuff is gone. I don't know what this is, Curtis. If you're trying to make a point, just come home and talk. You don't get to just disappear like this. Not without saying something." But she had said something. She said everything, while thinking I was asleep. That was the point. I didn't call her back. Instead, I went online and froze our joint bank account. I transferred what was legally mine to a separate card. I locked down my credit. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was trying to be smart. For once. Because something told me that the woman who couldn't stand me wouldn't stay calm for long. And I was right. The next morning, I got a text from her sister, of all people. We weren't even that close. It said, "Curtis, I don't know what happened, but Tessa is freaking out. She says you vanished and won't answer her. Can we talk?" I didn't reply to her either. And then came the last straw. Tessa posted a photo of us. Old photo. From some beach trip years ago. Captioned it, "Come home, please." Suddenly the woman who said she couldn't stand to be in the same room with me wanted me back in her world. But it was too late for that. Because while she was scrambling to figure out where I went, I was already making calls to someone I never thought I'd speak to again, someone who told me everything I was never supposed to know. And that's where the truth really begins to show its teeth. The thing about silence is, it makes people nervous, especially people with something to hide. And Tessa? Her silence didn't last long. By day 2, the texts had turned from "please come home" to "what are you doing?" and then, like clockwork, to "you're being ridiculous." But I wasn't being ridiculous. I was finally being honest with myself. I spent most of that day sitting on the carpeted floor of the motel room, staring at the same duffel bag I'd thrown together in the dark. Half the clothes were wrinkled. I forgot socks. I didn't even pack my toothbrush. But I brought my old backup phone, the one she didn't know I still had. And on that phone, I had one number saved that I'd never had the courage to call before. Her ex-best friend, Mallory. Now, I know how that sounds. Messy. Dangerous. But here's the thing. Tessa and Mallory had a falling out about a year ago. I never asked for details because it sounded like girl drama, and I was always too tired to get involved. But Mallory had once told me, back when we were still on good terms, "Curtis, if you ever feel like something's off, you come talk to me. Don't let her mess with your head." At the time, I laughed it off. But now, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I called. Mallory picked up on the second ring, and before I could even explain why I was reaching out after all this time, she said, "You found out, didn't you?" My stomach turned cold. I didn't even know what I had found out yet. So I told her everything, what I overheard, how I left, how Tessa was freaking out now that I was gone. There was this long pause on the other end. I thought she hung up. Then she whispered, "You need to know the truth, Curtis. And you need to hear it from someone who doesn't owe her loyalty anymore." And that's when everything started unraveling faster than I could keep up. Mallory didn't hold back. She told me Tessa had been emotionally checked out of our marriage for over a year, that the team outings were real, but that someone on her team had become more than just a colleague. His name was Dalton, some slick regional manager who only wore black and liked quoting startup podcasts like they were scripture. Apparently, it started with drinks, then rides home, then accidental hotel stays when conferences ran late. I wanted to throw my phone across the room, but I didn't. I needed to hear all of it. The most brutal part? Tessa had planned to leave me 6 months ago. She had been slowly pulling away on purpose, creating distance, picking fights she could blame on me. But when Dalton refused to commit to her outside of their little secret affair, she panicked. And she stayed. Not because she loved me, but because she didn't want to be alone. Mallory said she kept quiet for a long time, but the way Tessa talked about me, mocking me, calling me a backup plan, it disgusted her. That's why their friendship ended. Tessa thought Mallory was jealous. The truth was, Mallory just couldn't stomach the lies anymore. By the time the call ended, I was shaking. Not just with anger, but with a weird sense of relief. Like I'd finally confirmed I wasn't crazy. That the coldness, the distance, the way she looked through me like I was a shadow in my own home, it wasn't all in my head. It was calculated. But now, I was the one with control. And Tessa? She had no idea I knew everything. I took a deep breath, grabbed a notepad from the drawer, and started planning my next move. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to let the truth collapse on her all by itself. And when it did, she'd be the one left gasping for air. By the third day of my silence, Tessa was unraveling faster than I could have imagined. I stayed hidden. I didn't post anything. Didn't tell friends where I was. I became a ghost in my own story, and apparently, that scared her more than any fight ever had. The woman who once whispered that she couldn't stand to breathe the same air as me was now posting desperate quotes on Instagram stories and texting things like, "Can we talk like adults?" Or, "I don't want to lose everything over a misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. That word lit a fire in my chest every time I saw it. Meanwhile, I wasn't just sitting on motel sheets eating vending machine chips. I was collecting receipts. I messaged Mallory again and asked if she had anything concrete. I expected vague details, maybe some screenshots. What she sent me instead was a file, an actual folder she'd saved on her phone. Photos, audio snippets, a short video clip. I think she'd kept it originally out of anger, maybe fear, maybe guilt, but now she was handing it over to me like a gift I never wanted. One photo was from a company retreat in June. Tessa, in a bikini I'd never seen before, sitting on Dalton's lap with her hand resting on his chest like it belonged there. Another was from just a few weeks ago, her laughing at some rooftop bar, her hand resting comfortably on his thigh under the table, clearly thinking no one was watching. The video? Short. shaky. A few seconds of her voice, unmistakably hers, giggling and whispering. Curtis still thinks I'm in yoga class. I nearly dropped the phone. My hands were ice. I watched it again just to be sure. The way she said it, not with guilt, but with smugness, it gutted me more than any scream ever could. But here's the part one didn't expect. That same morning, Dalton's wife messaged me. Yup. Turns out Mallory didn't just send the files to me. She sent them to her, too. Her name was Kaylin, and she didn't waste time. Her message was cold and surgical. I believe we have something in common. I think it's time they both find out what that feels like. Now suddenly, this wasn't just me quietly escaping a toxic marriage. This was a slow, calculated demolition of a lie two people had wrapped themselves in for months. Tessa still had no idea I knew about Dalton, let alone that I'd spoken to his wife. She thought I was out sulking, sleeping in my car, waiting to come crawling back. So I gave her exactly what she was waiting for. I messaged her. Just one line. Meet me at the cafe on 14th, noon tomorrow. No lies this time. She replied in seconds. Yes. Thank God. I've missed you. She had no idea what was waiting for her at that table. And I made sure Dalton had no idea, either. Because I wasn't walking into that meeting alone. And by the time it ended, neither of them would be able to pretend anymore. I got there 10 minutes early. The cafe was one of those upscale, glass window spots she always dragged me to on Sundays, the kind where they spell your name wrong on purpose and act like burnt coffee is a personality. I chose the table by the window, not for the view, but because I wanted her to see me waiting. I wanted her to walk in and think, for just 1 second, that maybe she still had control of the narrative. That maybe I was here to talk things out. That maybe she could twist this into another emotional reset, where she played the misunderstood wife, and I played the desperate fool begging for her affection. But the difference this time was simple. I wasn't alone in this story anymore. I saw her before she saw me. She was wearing that soft pink coat, the one I bought her 2 Christmases ago. I remember thinking she looked stunning in it back then. Now, all I saw was the costume of someone rehearsing a lie. Her steps were slow, hesitant. Her eyes were scanning, and when they landed on me, she smiled. Not with relief, with calculation. Like she thought she was about to win something. She sat down across from me, took off her coat like it was a show, and tilted her head. You look tired, she said, like it was concern. Like she didn't know she was the reason I hadn't slept in 3 days. I didn't respond to that, just nodded toward the counter. You want anything? She shook her head. No, I just want to talk. I think we've both been under a lot of stress lately. I said things I didn't mean. I didn't know you heard me that night. That was the first twist of the knife. She knew, and she'd still spent days lying to my silence. I didn't mean it like that, she added quickly. I was venting. You were asleep. It wasn't. You said you hated waking up next to me. I interrupted, flat. You said you couldn't stand being in the same room with me. She swallowed. It was just words. Was Dalton just words too? That stopped everything. Her face changed in a second. The fake calm drained out of her like a leak in a pipe. What? I leaned forward. You know what's funny? I was going to keep this just between us. I was going to walk away clean. Let you deal with the silence. But then I got curious. So I made a few calls. Talked to someone you probably never expected me to. She was pale now. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. And then she called me. I added. Dalton's wife. Sweet woman. Much more composed than I expected. She and I had quite the conversation. The door behind her opened. And there they were. Dalton. And Kaylin. They walked in like they'd rehearsed it. Kaylin spotted me immediately and gave the slightest nod before locking eyes with her husband. Dalton froze. Tessa turned around just in time to see his face go white. She stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped. What is this? She hissed. No lies this time, remember? I said. That's what I asked for. Dalton took a step back, but Kaylin was already moving toward the table. Calm. Collected. Her phone was in her hand, and I knew what was queued up on it. The video. The one with Tessa's voice giggling about me still thinking she was in yoga class. Don't, Tessa warned. But it was too late. You destroyed your marriages over lies, Kaylin said, voice steady. At least now, you both get to hear what truth feels like. And right there, in the middle of that trendy cafe with the polished floors and curated playlists, the entire charade fell apart. Tessa couldn't even look at me. Her eyes darted between us like she was searching for an exit. Dalton mumbled something about being set up, but no one listened. It didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. No screaming. No slapping. Just four people standing in the ruins of a secret that had been lived like a second life. I didn't wait for her to explain. I didn't ask her to apologize. I just stood up, placed my wedding ring on the table between us, and walked out. And this time, she saw me leave. I didn't go back to the motel. I didn't need to. Something in me had shifted the moment I walked out of that cafe. Not because I felt powerful, I didn't. I still felt hollow, sick, tired. But at least now everything was out in the open. No more pretending. No more lies being whispered when I wasn't supposed to hear. Everyone knew. Every mask had been ripped off. What I didn't expect was how quickly Tessa would lose control. Less than 3 hours after the cafe explosion, I started getting calls from mutual friends, people we hadn't spoken to in months. Apparently, Tessa had started telling them I'd set her up, that I ambushed her, that I was manipulating her trauma for revenge. She even claimed I was working with Kaylin to ruin her life, out of jealousy. It was so absurd I actually laughed out loud the first time I heard it. Then I realized she was serious. She was trying to rewrite the entire thing. She even posted a long, vague status online about toxic men weaponizing silence, and fake allies who pretend to help women heal while secretly resenting their strength. She didn't name me, of course, but everyone knew. I was the ghost in every sentence. And people, mostly her work friends, started messaging me, accusing me of emotional abuse. Me, the guy she said felt like suffocating air. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. I didn't even open most of the messages. But it hurt. Of course it hurt. Because while she played the victim in public, I was the one alone in a rented room with a bag of clothes that still smelled like home. And yet, something told me this was just her first move. Because when Tessa realized the public sympathy wasn't enough to bring me crawling back, when she realized I wasn't going to fight her online or beg her to stop, she took it one step further. She showed up at my sister's house, unannounced, crying. And the story she told my family? It was a masterclass in manipulation. I found out from my sister's husband. He texted me while I was sitting in my car outside a laundromat, waiting on the world to make a little sense again. The message was short. Just, Tessa's here. Should I ask her to leave? I called him immediately. What do you mean she's there? She showed up crying. Said she didn't know where else to go. Said she needed to talk to your sister, woman to woman. I told him to let her say whatever she needed, and to listen, carefully. Now, my sister Maureen doesn't take sides easily. She's one of those no-nonsense types, sharp as a razor but always polite. She and Tessa were never close, but Maureen always gave her the benefit of the doubt. So when Tessa showed up at her door with red eyes and a trembling voice, Maureen sat her down and listened. But what Tessa didn't know, and what I had counted on, was that my sister doesn't just listen. She remembers every word. Tessa started with apologies. Soft ones. The kind that don't really say anything. I know I hurt him. I didn't mean for things to get this far. We both made mistakes. Classic stuff. Safe. Vague. Manipulative. But then she slipped. She said something that didn't match the performance. She said, I just thought he'd be too passive to actually do anything. My sister told me that's when she stopped playing nice. Too passive, Tessa had said. I didn't think he'd react like this. I thought he'd just wait until I cooled off. Maureen asked her, point blank, wait for what? For you to stop lying? For your affair to end? Or for him to forget you said he suffocated you? Tessa froze, tried to backtrack, but it was too late. Maureen told her, in the calmest voice imaginable, you didn't come here for closure. You came here to fix your image. You wanted someone in his family to forgive you first, so when the truth spread, you'd have a defense. Tessa left within 5 minutes. No more tears. No more shaking hands. Just silence, and the sound of a door closing a little too hard behind her. She texted me later that night. I don't even know who you are anymore. I almost replied. I had the words typed out, but then I deleted them. Because she was right. She didn't know me anymore. She'd built her world on the version of me who stayed quiet, who swallowed pain, who slept beside her without knowing she was planning to replace me. But that version of me was gone. And tomorrow, she was going to find out just how far gone I really was. I didn't seek revenge. That was never the goal. I wasn't trying to destroy her life or drag her through the mud like she did to me behind my back. No, I didn't need to. Tessa had already lit the match the moment she said she couldn't stand waking up next to me. All I did was step back and let the fire show itself. The day after she left my sister's house, the truth caught up to her in ways I didn't expect. Word spread. Not from me. I never posted a single thing, but from people who finally felt free to speak. Friends of hers started messaging me privately, saying they were sorry for believing her story. One of her coworkers sent me screenshots from their group chat, where she was tearing into anyone who didn't immediately defend her. I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't need to. I was already moving forward. What she never realized is that the worst thing you can do to someone who's spent years being invisible is finally see them, and then try to erase them again. She tried to pretend I didn't matter until I vanished completely. And when I did, she realized just how much of her life had been built on my quiet presence. The rent, the routines, the stability, the support. When I pulled it all away, not out of spite, but for my own peace, her entire world became hollow. Meanwhile, mine started to fill again. I got a place 2 towns over. Small, but warm. No reminders of her. No echoes of old fights in the walls. Just my own furniture, my own groceries, my own quiet. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. One evening, I ran into Mallory at a bookstore, completely by accident. We stood there, awkwardly at first, surrounded by shelves of paperbacks and people pretending not to eavesdrop. Then she smiled. And I did too. It wasn't romantic, not yet. But it was real. And it wasn't built on lies. I've been seeing a therapist. Something I should have done long ago. We talk a lot about patterns. About why I ignored the signs. About why I stayed in a home where I felt like a ghost. I'm starting to realize that I wasn't weak for loving someone who didn't love me back. I was just hopeful. And hope is only a weakness when you hand it to the wrong person. As for Tessa, the last message she ever sent me said, "You didn't have to humiliate me." I never replied, because she still doesn't get it. I didn't humiliate her. She did that all on her own. I just stepped out of the way, and I finally gave myself permission to stop begging to be loved.